we are being used as, by the Western nations, to somehow embarrass China or to harm China. So I thought that, well, that's a genuine concern. Though I think we've been, we're not very, very, smart, but I think we did not allow anyone to use us. At least that much, you see, I feel confident. But, they have their reasons to have doubts. So I actually started making effort to see if some Asian leaders will be willing to step in, so that I can kind of not say goodbye to the Americans and Europeans, but, that we somehow try to, bring some regional leaders, those who have, let's say, the confidence of the Chinese leaders, including here in this country. I would not want to name names. But for example, just a year before Hu Jintao took over, he made a tour of several South Asian countries. He went to Thailand. I'm sure he came here also, but then he went to Indonesia. So just 1 week before Hu Jintao came to Bangkok, I went and had approached Kun Anand, who was Prime Minister of Thailand, I think twice or thrice, and who we know had a close relation with the Chinese government. And I, fortunately, through friends, had a personal relation with him, to urge him to speak to Hu Jintao. Then I went to Indonesia and met with President Abraham Wahid. In fact, just an hour before Hu Jintao walked in for the official meeting, I was with President Wahid, just briefing him. Because I thought, now you see, here's a new leader who may not want it to be seen as being kind of pressurized by the Western countries. Let's go to the more neighboring countries. And no one will think that Indonesia or Thailand is, in a position to pressure, China. And also there somehow this misperception of we being used, by some hostile nations. But it was very interesting, two different reads, because both of them very kindly raised the issue. And they both came back with rather slightly two different answers from Hu Jintao. It very clearly shows, because Kun Anand, of course, is a very highly skilled, politician and a diplomat, and knows the issue, So to Kun Anand, Hu Jintao gave a very standard answer. Oh, well, our doors are open. In fact, some Tibetans have just recently even been to, China. It's standard. But the Dalai Lama must do this, he must renounce independence and so on and so forth. But to President Wahid, Abdul Rahman Wahid, totally different response. Because here is a person, he's of course, a great person, but not necessarily, that much, let's say, informed about the nuts and bolts of the issue. And he may have raised that in a totally different manner, because to him, Hu Jintao very clearly says that by next year, I will become the party secretary. When I become the party secretary, the Dalai Lama and I have to resolve this issue. He also told President Wahid, that I have dealt with this issue and I was the party secretary. So President Wahid was very happy, very excited, because by then, I met with him. I have come back to Thailand. And I was with a mutual friend, and President Wahid calls to say that, Lodi, you wanted to hear, one good news and one bad news. What do you want to hear, the good news or the bad news? So I said, first give me the bad news. He said, the bad news is that nothing is going to happen for some time, till Hu Jintao takes over. And then, you know, he's a great person, but he was not well briefed. He didn't even know that, you know, Hu Jintao was the party secretary in Tibet. He kept calling him governor. He said, Lodi, you didn't know that he was the governor of Tibet? So, of course, he's the president. So I said, sir, yes, he was, yes, I'm sorry, I didn't tell you. Anyway, he said that he was the governor. He told me that he was the governor of Tibet. So he said that the Dalai Lama and I will have to resolve that. So he was so that was good news. He's saying that, you know, I have a very explicit, and then he was very kind to even do a little bit of follow-up. But he did nothing more than just allow the dialogue to kind of continue, which we have begun. And it's very clear that no specific instructions are being issued to the competent authorities to try to make or try to take this you know, issue further. And then, you know, by 2008, I mean, those of you who follow the issue, because then in Tibet, unfortunately, there was this widespread demonstrations, not only in Lhasa, but throughout the Tibetan plateau. That then brought about, you know, major setback. And by then, His Holiness also became very, very, you know, disappointed. He was deeply saddened to see the situation unfolding on the plateau. He kind of felt, you know, both, like, I think, hopeless and really helpless, because he sees the situation, he sees the suffering of his people, but he also realized there was actually nothing that he could do. He just realized that was, you know, and not any one of us, you know, could do that. So this is the time, if you follow, remember, then he started saying that I have no trust and hope in the Chinese leaders. But he still said that, but I do have a hope and trust for the Chinese people. And again, some of us, you know, kind of bureaucrats, of course, we didn't want him to say that, but, you know, he is the Dalai Lama. He's very frank, he's very transparent. So he started, you know, also expressing that. And similarly, you know, I think, you know, Chinese government really mishandled that situation. I was in Beijing soon after that, twice, and I told them, no, by the way, as a rule, I never say anything harsh if I have not said it face to face. This has always been a principle that I, you know, really bind myself. I always, you know, if I say something critical, you can be rest assured that I have said it to their face, maybe even much more, you know, strongly. I said that they mishandled it very poorly is, yes, there was unfortunate, you know, demonstrations. It is true that there were images of, you know, Tibetans, you know, with the kind of knife in the hand, you know, chasing around some tourists, you know, Chinese people, you know, is unfortunate. But the Chinese government, especially the United Front, gave so much publicity throughout China. For the first time, I saw many of my Chinese friends also really beginning to have some kind of, well, I mean, animosity may be too strong word, but really kind of, you know, saying, wow, you know, we thought the Tibetans are kind of, you know, peaceful people. You know, what are they doing? And it also seems that they just have this deep dislike of us, you know, Han people. Similarly, the Tibetans, not only just ordinary Tibetans, every Tibetan, including party members, senior party members, from that year on for a long time, even till now, there is definitely a kind of almost like a segregation. They are not trusted. There are many stories. For example, you know, quite senior officials from you know, Tibetan areas comes to Beijing for some conference. They walk into hotels because in China you have this identity which says nationality. I do not know why they want to have it. So person, whatever his name is, down there is a column that you have to fill in. so if you're, a Han or, Jiangsu Tibetan, so when they see that the identity doesn't matter, this fellow might be the party secretary of some important county, but, the clerk at the hotel counter has been instructed that every person who is Tibetan is a suspect. So quite often there are many stories where they have clear reservations, but they go there and say that, oh, so sorry, no vacancy. So this kind of thing, I told very frankly to my counterparts, what you are doing is of immense damage to the national unity. You are creating deep animosity that is dividing, because unlike some other nationalities, the Tibetans and the Chinese as nationality never had any problem. I say that with confidence. We had difficulties with some policies, no doubt, but never at the personal level, never. No Chinese was worried to walk into any Tibetan village. If you are driving around, if your car breaks down, and if there is a, Tibetan household, because this is told to me by many of my Chinese friends, they just casually walk in, and they're welcomed, given whatever help they need. It is not in some other parts, but that almost, was ruined by what was happening in 2008 and how it has been handled. Until this day, I don't think we have fully recovered. So these are things that had finally, derailed. But now, just to conclude, Jean knows that sometimes, some people call me in Washington, D.C., Mr. Optimist. With some is underlying criticism to say that Lodi is always thinking that everything is going to work out, and so, but one has to be an optimist. I always said that if I did not have the optimism, then this issue will have been weathered away a long time back. It is the optimism of His Holiness. It is the optimism of those of us who are in this movement that we are still around. Unfortunately, the issue is not resolved, but we're still around. Now, my hope is that with, again, change of guards and Beijing, and it will take time, it will take time. There are a number of things, both the global, domestic issues that are confronting, that are, keeping the leadership. But I really certainly hope that the new leadership will have a fresh look. I hope for the first time, Deng Xiaoping's famous quotation, seeking truth from facts. My hope is really that, and I also tell the Tibetan leaders that we too must also seek our truth from facts. Quite often, like any other human being, we also have our own kind of idealized, facts, which doesn't also allow us to get to the real, truth. One of the reasons that I have some, optimism is that I had the opportunity of, knowing and having dealt rather closely with President Xi Jinping's father, Xi Jinping. He was, our counterpart during our first rounds, and someone that I really deeply respect. I was young, very young those days. You see, I had no gray hair. I think I was in my, early 40s or maybe early 30s. This is 1982. And, I saw him, first of all, a person with, a human being. When I say human being, I'm not saying that the other leaders are not human beings. Of course, they're human beings. But sense of kind of, I do not know, I'm sure you know what I'm trying to say. And he showed a special kind of kindness to me because I was young and therefore very vocal. And other leaders were very, very unhappy with me. They kind of, tell me, you just shut up. But he always says, no. We must always give the young people an opportunity, because they have things, sometimes they're more creative. And going out of his way. And he understood. And he had a very interesting, because he felt a little bit of ownership of Tibet. In a nice way, Because remember, he was, when Tibet was, to use, a term, liberated, there was first the 18th Route Army, which was under part of Deng Xiaoping's, which went through Kham, through Chamdo, through Sichuan. There's another PLA element that went into Tibet through Qinghai, and Xi Zhongxing was the party commissar or the party secretary for that military region. So therefore he felt that he and people like Deng Xiaoping were instrumental in bringing back Tibet to the fold of the great motherland, liberate, but in a nice way. They felt some ownership and also responsibility to protect. For example, Xi Zhongxing was a great protector of the Panchen Lama. Panchen Lama himself told me, because he felt that he has some responsibility, because it is we who went and liberated, we brought them back to the, and he had affection for the Dalai Lama, because they met in 1954, and when we met, he always carries a photo of the Dalai Lama in 1954, young Dalai Lama with him. Then he had another photo of recent Dalai Lama, and he always quite often will say that, look, he hasn't aged. He really looks still young, I'm very happy. And then he has old Rolex watch, which is very proud. He, first day we meet, and then he says, when you go back, will you please tell the Dalai Lama that I'm still wearing the watch that he gave me. Even during the Cultural Revolution, I was able to somehow keep it. And it still is ticking away. Look, So he had that personal kind of, interest. I mean, this is something that I really admire of the revolutionary leaders in China. I may not agree with some of their policies, but as people, I think they're really different quality. They really, I think, believed in whatever ideology. I may not agree with that ideology, but their belief in that is very sincere. When they talk about having liberated Tibet, I think they genuinely, believe they have done it. You see, that's important. Whether you say I see it different, that's also different. But as far as they're concerned. So that, and also I think both with the Tao Ziyang and also with Hu Bang,